Speaking about new rants, I'm starting to agree with, I mean, I've always felt that Trump was insane. I got to do a little bit of Trump stuff here because he's really going off the rails. I mean, really losing it. His attacks on a dead man, his attacks on Kellyanne Conway's husband, his attacks on Republican members of Congress who are disagreeing with him now. It's really becoming what's beyond bizarre. Something that is, I mean, bizarre squared, but something beyond bizarre. Trump is a very sick man. And I think what he needs to do is to sit in one of those, what do you call them, like those wooden chairs we have around the fire pit. What are those called? Adirondack chairs. He needs to sit on an Adirondack chair on his back porch and stare at the ocean and just shut the fuck up. Because he's really proving that this country has a president. I won't say is being led by, because he couldn't lead himself. But this country has a president who is obviously, without a doubt, out of his goddamn mind. Anyway, McCain. When McCain was alive, I talked some real trash about McCain because because of what his role was in the Vietnam War. A war crime that the United States committed against a country that could barely feed its own people, but had the stick-to-itiveness to kick our ass. And they did, using guerrilla warfare tactics that Ho Chi Minh had learned fighting the French, fighting the Chinese, fighting the Japanese. When the United States came around, it was just, okay, one more round of these bastards and maybe they'll leave us alone. And as far as I was concerned, McCain's role in that war had no honor, in my opinion. But McCain was alive when I made those statements. Does that make a difference? Well, to me it does. And my criticism of McCain was his specific role in our national war crime. Being a pilot, a Navy pilot, to rain down death from the sky on people who either didn't know it was coming or were completely innocent. He was shot down, remember, over Hanoi. Hanoi was, at the time, the capital city of what was referred to as North Vietnam. But what Trump is doing, Trump attacks McCain because Trump is a psycho fuck, because he's out of his mind. There is no reason for Trump to say anything about McCain. No rational reason. The irrational reasons include the fact that Trump always was insanely jealous of McCain or anybody who had actually served in combat, even if the combat took place during the commission of a war crime. Trump doesn't differentiate. Trump is an asshole. And McCain was looked at with such respect, not just by Republicans, but by so many Democrats in the Senate and the House who looked at McCain, as our elected officials are inclined to do, as a war hero. I don't see him as a war hero. Trump said he's not a war hero because he got captured, which is the most horseshitty thing I think I've ever heard. But that's Trump. I didn't consider him a war hero because of his role. Now, did he choose the role? Apparently not. Is any combat veteran able to look back and say, well, I chose to attack that hill or bomb that city? It was my choosing. Or was he or she ordered to do that? I know. Nuremberg convictions made it very clear that I was only following my orders is not a defense if you're put on trial for war crimes. So you can see that the issue of McCain is very complicated, very complex. Trump doesn't know complicated from a horse's ass. To Trump, either he will insult people or he'll practically give them a figurative blowjob. There's no halfway ground with Trump. He gives the blowjobs until the person to whom he's doing that crosses Trump in Trump's addled fucking little pea brain. Once that happens, then Trump is like a vicious, like a Tasmanian devil, just when his old lady said, well, if my husband is attacked, he will hit back. If my husband is hit, he will hit back twice as hard. Like a 5-year-old in a playground, in a sandbox. It is so disgusting to watch this creep. I'm getting too far into it. Anyway, Cindy McCain had to suffer some real shitty stuff from Trump's followers. Trump's core followers. I'm not talking about the 63 million people who voted for him. I think probably 80% of those people have come out of the ether and realized what they did. But the hardcore supporters of Trump, who will, as soon as Trump names somebody as a target that Trump, doesn't like anymore, or is making juvenile, ridiculous, cutting comments about, this 20% of his original group will attack like vicious fucking vampires. Because every one of Trump's followers on Twitter is a coward down to the bottoms of their feet. They are cowards, losers, whiners, crybabies. They've never done shit and never will. That's why they love Trump. So Cindy McCain shared a hate-filled message that she received from a woman who tweeted that she was glad that McCain was dead. Cindy McCain went to Twitter and posted a screenshot of a private message she received from this woman who addressed her using a pejorative. The pejorative is cunt. And in that message, the woman lashed out at both McCain's husband and their daughter. The woman wrote, quote, "Your husband was a traitorous piece of warmongering shit, and I'm glad he's dead. Hope your Miss Piggy-looking daughter," the one who's on The View, "hope your Miss Piggy-looking daughter chokes to death on the next burger she stuffs down her fat neck too, cunt." This is a Trump supporter. There's no surprise here. This is a Trump supporter. Cindy McCain said she shared the note because, quote, "I want to make sure all of you could see how kind and loving a stranger can be." Sarcasm. And she showed the sender's name visible in the screenshot. McCain wrote, quote, "I'm posting her note for her family and friends to see," end quote. Now, I misspoke a minute ago. Cindy McCain is not on The View. That's the daughter, right? This sick message was the latest in a day of social media insults that started over the weekend when this sick bastard in the White House sent out or retweeted 50 tweets. I mean, think about this for a second. All of the issues that need attention by the President of the United States or his advisors. And this rotten fucker sits at Mar-a-Lago and writes nasty shit, part of which is attacking a dead person. He sent several attacking McCain, who died from brain cancer last summer. Meanwhile, some of the Republicans in the Senate, I don't know, it's like somebody shoved a sharp pointed stick on fire up their asses with this McCain attack by Trump. I mean, everything that Trump has done so far is horrifying. It's criminal. It's disgusting. And the Republicans have enabled him just to keep doing it, keep doing it. Yeah, send us some more nominees, unqualified as they are, for the federal bench. We'll confirm them in groups of 10. Johnny Isakson, who is a senior senator from here in Georgia, said that Trump's criticism of McCain is, Isakson's word, deplorable. And Isakson promised to continue speaking out against Trump if Trump continues to speak ill of the deceased war hero and former Republican presidential nominee. Notice the qualifier. I'll continue to speak out if it's about my former colleague. Well, Senator Isakson, who is dealing with his own health crisis right now, but Senator Isakson, it's good to see that something that this psycho bastard can say or do, something will motivate you as a Republican senator to respond. If it takes Trump attacking a dead person, I want you to consider that, Senator Isakson, just for shits and giggles. Of all the terrible shit that Trump has been involved in, that we know about, of all of his insults, of all of his stupidity and his incompetence, now you, Senator Isakson, are willing to respond to this beast. Okay. Isakson said, quote, "It's deplorable," what he said. He was doing a show for Georgia Public Broadcasting today. Isakson said, "That's what I said on the floor of the Senate 7 months ago. It will be deplorable 7 months from now if he says it again, and I will continue to speak out." Isakson continued, quote, "There aren't Democratic casualties and Republican casualties on the battlefield. There are American casualties. And we should never reduce the service that people give to this country, including the offering of their own lives, to say political, to use as any political fodder in Washington, D.C., or anywhere else for that matter." Well, Senator, the mere fact that you're on Georgia Public Television, you were preaching to the already converted. There's not a single follower of Trump who even knows what public television is. They think it's someplace you go to watch Sesame Street. And as far as Georgia Public Television, okay, you're a senator from Georgia. But I just wonder if Isakson is aware that what he said today, I'm sure by this time at night, it is now 9:20 Eastern Time here on the first day of spring, March 20th, 2019. And I wonder how many insulting, disgusting tweets have wound up on Isakson's Twitter feed. I wonder how many emails calling him everything but a decent human being. And let me say this about Isakson. I don't like a lot of his votes. I think he is he's putting the country at grave risk by continuing to just go along with the confirmation of some of these Republican judges. But Isakson himself is a decent man. I remember when he first ran, I think he was a representative for, well, I knew him when he was in the Georgia House of Representatives years ago. I worked for a political publication here in Atlanta. I had occasion to write about the Georgia General Assembly and occasionally talk to some of these members of the General Assembly. And I remember talking to Isaacson, and he was a nice guy. In the wake of McCain's death last year, Isaacson gave a Senate speech at the time that said, quote, "Anybody who in any way tarnishes the reputation of John McCain deserves a whipping, because most of those who would do the wrong thing about John McCain didn't have the guts to do the right thing when it was their turn." Now, we can argue about that until hell freezes over, that in Isaacson's frame of mind, doing the right thing was bombing the fuck out of North Vietnam. Isaacson told Georgia Public Television today, quote, "We can't talk about our veterans in any way but to thank them for the service they render, for the job that they do." He went on, "If my kids started talking John McCain not being a hero or because he was a prisoner of war didn't make any difference, they would have a serious conversation with me and I would have it out with them," end quote, referring to his own kids. McCain is, for a lot of us on the left, what I said, a complicated issue. Isaacson told the news outlet, he did an interview Tuesday with the Bulwark, which I guess is a right-wing or a conservative publication. He said in an interview then, "I want to do what I said that day on the floor of the Senate. I just want to lay it on the line that the country deserves better. The McCain family deserves better." He's talking about this lump of shit that is the President of the United States. The country deserves better. The McCain family deserves better. I don't care if he's President of the United States and owns all the real estate in New York or is building the greatest immigration system in the world. Nothing is more important than the integrity of the country and those who fought and risked their lives for all of us. End quote. And Isaacson had previously made clear his reluctance to criticize Trump. Last week he said, quote, "I'm not going to answer the question the way it was phrased because the headline would be, 'Isaacson supports rebuking the president,' and I'm not going to do that." And see, that's where Johnny Isaacson and I seriously split. Because if he can say what he said about Trump's filthy mouth where it concerns McCain, what about Trump's filthy mouth that was directed toward the family, the Gold Star family of the soldier, a Muslim, who died in Iraq? Isaacson, as far as I know, never said anything about that when Trump accused that mom and dad of being less than patriotic to the country. So while Isaacson is, I'm not going to go back on what he said. I think he's a good person, basically. But what happens to a lot of these right-wingers, when they get into politics, they lose their moral compass. They just do. They just do. And I think Isaacson is of that sort. When he says, the headline would be, "Isaacson supports rebuking the president, and I'm not going to do that." What the fuck does that mean? What would it take, Johnny, for you to rebuke him for a reason other than the way he is shitting on the memory of your dead colleague? What would it take? What would it take, not just for Isaacson, But for some of these other Republican senators, whom I'm sure a lot of people say, well, that one's decent. I don't agree with his politics, but he's a decent person. Well, that one, what is holding these people back? Now, my theory is that every single Republican in Congress is a fucking hypocrite and a liar and a cheat and a sneak and a coward. That's my overarching feeling since Trump has shown himself to be such a pig. And the Republican senators do nothing. They have foregone their constitutional role as a check and balance on a fucking psycho, should a psycho ever get the presidency, which has now happened. So Isaacson goes on to say, any way that I answer your questions is going to engage me in that line of thinking about rebuking the president. And I don't want to be on either side of it. You don't want to be on either side of it. Johnny, let me tell you something, pal. And I'll call you Johnny because we're about the same age. Matter of fact, I think I'm a little older than you are. But the fact that you don't want to be on either side of it shows me one thing. Not only have you lost your moral compass, for fuck's sake, you're as much of a hypocrite as Trump. It's just that you are more refined and more subdued in the way you show your hypocrisy. See, I know Johnny Isaacson to be a nice Christian man here in the state of Georgia. Goes to church whenever he's here. Oh, he does. And being a nice Christian man and giving this full-throated support. Sometimes you give full-throated support by just not saying anything. Like Pastor Niemöller said about the Nazis. I didn't say anything. Came for the Jews, I didn't say anything. Came for the trade unionists, I didn't say anything. Then they came for me. But Isaacson, you don't want to be on either side of it. And then he issues this little platitude. He says, quote, I want us to get the job done for the people we represent and not fool around with a bunch of political fights that make good headlines but don't make good policies. Well, Johnny, if that's the case, then you and your colleagues should notify your colleagues in the House of Representatives that it's time to broom this motherfucker. Get him out! If you really, Johnny, want to get the job done for the people you represent, then wake the fuck up and get rid of this psycho. Hey, Truth Seekers, Mike Malloy here on the Progressive Voices Network. We've got a deal for you. You can now subscribe to our new 1-hour audio-video combination Malloycast for only $29 a year. But you have to act fast. This deal ends on tax day, April 15th. Since we're without any business managers now, 100% of your support goes directly to maintaining our nightly campfire. Visit MikeMalloy.com to renew or to subscribe. And thank you for all the ways you keep it lit.